Forward with Rose, the podcast for current and aspiring leaders in higher education. I'm Marie Sloan, your host, and each week I bring you candid conversations with academic leaders and institutional change agents who are shaping the future of our field. This is where leadership meets transformation. Whether you're managing complex teams or preparing for your next leadership role, this show helps you redefine your leadership style, expand your influence, and drive measurable impact. Today's guest is Dr. John J. Murray, Jr., Executive Director for the Center of Excellence in Legal Studies and Public Safety at Alvin Community College, military veteran, former litigator, and nationally recognized conflict resolution coach. From courtrooms to classrooms, John brings hard-earned wisdom on leading under pressure and resolving conflict before it burns bridges. Get ready to learn, lead, and think forward. Hi, John. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing really well. I'm really excited about this conversation.
I am.
And I'm, thinking about being really creative from courtrooms to classrooms. And that's really inspiring to me. The legal profession is just one that I admire greatly. At one time, I wanted to be an attorney. I still feel there's an inner attorney in me. And so as the question asker today, let's get started.
Okay.
Can you share a little bit about how you went from courtrooms to classrooms and a little bit of your background and how it got you to higher education?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. To your question, I've always loved teaching. When I was lucky enough to be in the JAG Corps after I graduated from law school, one of my favorite positions at that time was to be one of two law instructors at the United States Army Military Police School.
Wow.
And in that role, I was teaching criminal law, the law of war, military justice to any number of soldiers and officers that were transitioning through the military police school. And it was just such an exciting and neat opportunity to have different classes throughout the day, different experiences coming into the classroom, and using my experience as a litigator at the time to teach them the best way I could. So after I left the JAG Corps, I went into private practice and was a litigation attorney for a number of years, but I still had the itch or the urge to get back into teaching. So when an opportunity came up, my wife and I, we moved across the country from Illinois to Texas, took on a teaching position at Alvin Community College to run their paralegal program. And I started following my passion to teach. And now I am the executive director over the paralegal program and a number of other programs here at the school.
Well, congratulations to you on that. And let me just stop here for a moment and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you for your service. And I'm so happy it's led you, all of that experience, all that service has led you to another area of service, which is putting our students first and developing the leaders within our organizations and institutions. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Let's talk about how you continue to lead forward. So in your leadership role, I'm sure there are opportunities that require you to navigate institutional politics and competing priorities. So how do you do that and stay focused and grounded?
Yeah, I think that one of my methods of conflict resolution, and I think whether you're keeping the status quo or you're innovating, you're changing, you're leading forward, one of my main aspects of conflict resolution is I created the stop, drop, and roll method.
Yes.
And the stop, drop, and roll method is whenever you're approached with a situation, can you stop? Can you slow things down enough? Can you not be distracted by technology, by your phone, by emails going off? Can you just have a moment and sit in silence to listen and understand? So stop and then drop. Are we able to humble ourselves enough to recognize that we don't have all the answers at times, that we need to see the other perspective, that we need to hear the thoughts and the transition that they've taken to get to the point where there is this change that's being proposed.
Yeah.
But at some point, leaders have to roll too. And so the stop, drop, and roll is you stop, you've slowed things down, you've humbled yourself, you've listened, you've helped the person feel heard and understood. But at some point, leaders also have to ultimately make a decision and move forward.
Well, let's dive deeper into the stop, drop, and roll, and a little deeper into conflict, since you brought that up.
Sure.
Conflict in the workplace is just not seen as healthy by a lot of people. I'm a big proponent of healthy conflict and what I call collaborative debate. I think it's not only necessary, but should be looked at as valued and appreciated, bringing people to the table. And so your stop, drop, and roll method really resonates with me. I also believe that in order to do that, you have to have high levels of trust among team members and colleagues, because if you're going to get into conflict, well, you have to be able to know that it's going to be received, as you mentioned, the stop, drop, and roll method. And so for those leaders out there who say, I'm running from conflict, I don't know how to handle conflict, stop, drop, and roll sounds so easy, but I need a little bit more. What would you say to them?
Sure. Well, when we are kind of placed in these awkward or conflict situations, there's a number of different ways to look at it. One is inevitably people are going to say, especially in the workplace, I have to put out a fire.
Yes.
And that's how I came up with the stop, drop, and roll method is how do you put out a fire? We're always taught you got to stop, you got to drop, and you got to roll. But when you start unpacking those different levels, one thing that kind of follows through all three of them is empathy. And empathy is, to your point of building trust,
yes,
you have to build empathy first. When you build empathy, trust is the byproduct of that effort.
yes.
So if you are able to, and a lot of people, I would say, define empathy incorrectly. They say you need to stand in someone else's shoes. That's not empathy. Empathy is you step into someone's shoes, but you walk. You walk in their shoes. You have the action of, well, now I know that this shoe, the sole is falling off of the shoe. Now I know with this shoe that the heel is worn out on one side because they have a bad leg. And, you never would have realized that if you just stood in their shoes, brought your own experience, brought your own bias, brought your own understanding, and I just step into your shoes. I'm just giving you my opinion in your shoes. And that's not going to help anyone. The analogy I give is if a parent comes home at the end of a long day and they have a 2-year-old child at home. And let's say the parent has had a tough day at work. They're trying to pay the bills. They've got a boss who's yelling at them. They're maybe looking at marital problems. And they take off their work shoes. And the 2-year-old puts their feet like one of those like touching pictures. They put their feet in the parent's shoes.
Yeah.
The child doesn't understand what is all going on with the parent just because they put their feet in the shoes.
Yeah.
So we as leaders have to not only step into the shoes of the people around us to build trust, but we have to actually take the proactive step of being willing to walk in the shoes to build empathy. And when you build empathy, then you can build trust. When you build trust, you can make decisions.
Absolutely. I love that analogy. And you have me thinking now in all the times I have facilitated emotional intelligence and the underlying aspect being empathy. How I have said many times, put yourself in somebody's shoes, but not taking it that one step further, which means to take a step in their shoes. And though I may not have the full picture, it has created some data for me. And that data can help along the way. So let's use that. You talked about decision making. I'm bringing in data now informed decision making.
Yeah.
When you think about higher education and the decisions that need to be made, and then you bring in the legal aspects and your conflict resolution coaching, how do we make data informed decisions in our organizations with the student in mind, keeping the student at the center?
Yeah. Well, data at times could be very valuable, and at times it could be a necessary evil, because we are definitely driven with the ease of technology these days of collecting large amounts of data, of trying to set up different metrics that we need to meet. And those metrics, they're like the popcorn trail that people want to feast on the numbers. They want the graph. They want the chart. And, at times those charts and those graphs are valuable. They could help us guide decisions, but we can't lose the humanity of what are those graphs made up of. A lot of conflict, it's not about statistics, it's about the interpersonal relationship that is happening between two people. So the same thing goes in higher education when we are looking at statistics. Is you might have a chart of how many students passed a particular exam.
Okay.
But if you don't understand why the two who did not pass the exam, one was going through a divorce, one was, her parent died, so she didn't pass that exam. If you don't understand the personal connection to the statistics, we are putting the student second place, and we're putting the statistic above that. And that never works in conflict. It never works in interpersonal relationship.
Right.
There has to be, again, with empathy, it's, do I know you? And do I know why you are performing the way you are, beyond any grade, percentage, or number that I could give you? Your story is important to the picture.
Wow, that is a really refreshing perspective, to really think about our students from the inside, as opposed to what's happening in the data that we have on the outside, right in front of us. And to me, that sounds like a culture shift. That sounds like behaviors need to change. And so, how can we do that? How do we begin the institutional culture shift that addresses the needs of our students and puts those needs as a priority?
Yeah, I go back to our earlier conversation on empathy a little bit, but there's a great story with St. Ignatius. I love this story. Whenever I go around and I coach and I teach conflict resolution to different teams, there's a great story. St. Ignatius, back in the day with missionaries, he would have this collection of missionaries, and they'd go into new places, and they'd always want to preach. Everybody wants to get on the stage and preach and share their experience and their expertise, and they wanted to spread the word. And as they would go into a new place, St. Ignatius would say, hold up. Before you ever think about preaching in this new place, first you have to walk with the most marginalized. And again, in that walk, you will understand what you need to preach about. So until you've done the walk with the most marginalized, all you can ever offer someone are platitudes. You're great job, excellent, I can't believe how good you are. Or outrage. I can't believe you did that. What are you thinking? Platitudes and outrage. You can never offer true consolation. So what students are looking for, they've got enough people on the ivory tower talking down and telling them what they should and shouldn't do. And they, a lot of times in a community college, that's all they've had in their life. They've never
Yes.
had somebody who's told them, you could be great. You could be great
Yeah.
if you choose. You could choose to be great. I have faith that you can be great. You could succeed. You could be better than you've ever been told you could be. So the institutional shift is, how do we go from, platitudes and outrage with, again, data and statistics and grading, a lot of times
Yes.
just grading, to feedback and growth and consolation that builds the organization from the heart rather than just the numbers.
Bringing more heart into not just our teaching, and our teams, but also throughout our institutions. That is a culture shift. Putting heart back into the way that we are not just educating students, but the way that we're relating to them, communicating with them, and helping them on their path, their journey to whatever it is they want to do moving forward. You talk a lot about this belief, having the faith and the belief in our students. For those of you that don't know who are listening, I started my career as an elementary school teacher, and I thought that I would retire K through 6 doing that. And I remember teaching 6th graders, and they were curious about what their next step was going to be. And what I found so surprising was that no one had really said to them, and I was in a very low socioeconomic school at the time. No one had said to them, you can go to college. And so just saying that, I believe in you, you can do this. And I will share a quick story with you that I had been teaching for about 10 years. A student came back. Of course, they grow so much when they're gone for 10 years, and I didn't recognize them, told me their name, and said that they had just enrolled in college. First one in their family to do that. Just brought tears to my eyes. But it speaks exactly to what you're saying, having the belief and the faith that you can complete, you can receive that certificate, you can transfer and go on if that's what you want to do, or find a place in the workforce that really meets your needs. And so these are all transitions. So as you speak about, honoring a student's transitions, how do we prepare leaders in our organizations to ensure there's continuity, not just to our strategic goals, but to what's right?
Yeah. Well, I think part of leadership in general is there's multiple prongs, but I think two prongs to it is, one is, what are you doing as a leader in the moment? How are you responding to situations in real time, and how are you leading by example so people can see that acted out and that you're walking the walk and not just pontificating what people should do. But
Okay.
I think the second part to that to leadership is, how are you growing the people to continue on with the mission after you've left? How are you supporting them? How are you encouraging their growth within the school or within the organization, to give them the skills so there is that smooth transition from them up through you, and you are just kind of a vehicle who is holding a spot for as long as you hold the position. But we know in higher education that people move to different positions. You change from faculty to a department chair or a program director. You move in different ways. You move schools at times. So there is this constant flux of people coming in and people coming out. You have adjuncts who need to, understand how they could fit within the organization as well. So there is all of this, but everybody is looking for the leader who can be the stable force that they can look up to but also someone who is going to support their dreams. I always remember this great quote from John Maxwell, and he says, great leaders know of the people who follow them. They know their dreams, they know what they dream about, they know what they cry about, and they know what they laugh about. And if you can master with the people around you what they dream about, what they laugh about, and what they cry about, you've gone a long way to being a leader.
Yeah. Well, let's talk specifically about your leadership then. How you do those three things, and these with the people that you lead. You mentioned that people come from different industries. I'm thinking of you specifically. You started your career in the military, in the JAG Corps. Then you have private practice, and that led you to higher education. You moved across country for the position that you have. And so you've really had a shift. So now, with all of that experience, how do you lead across departments, disciplines, and teams using the information, the experience, the data that you have inspired without feeling exhausted and overwhelmed or even frustrated? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think if you love the people around you and you invest in them, you kind of, your bucket gets filled with serving others and helping others. If anything, my life kind of experience of moving to these different roles and different positions has been one of, I've been under a lot of great leaders, and I've taken what I can from the great leaders that I've learned from, and then I've been under some not so great leaders, and you kind of say, I don't want to be like that whenever I'm in a leadership position. I'm going to try to keep that over here and resist against being that sort of leader. So now, when you have kind of this team of many different experts who are coming in as subject matter experts, but we have to build off of each other and become better than our single parts together as a team, I always think about one of the greatest leaders I worked for in the JAG Corps. I came in the first day and he said, "You're a family member. Families fight, families have disagreements, families are always there for each other." Yeah. And, if you build a team and you have this family kind of dynamic, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be conflict. There's going to be change. There's going to be difficult days. But you're going to like coming to work each day. You're going to have each other's back. You're going to not have it be where it's just a drain to be around the people that you have around you. But you have to take the effort to build that relationship, and it has to play out where it's not just talk. People see through the talk of it. Oh, we're one big happy family and everything is. That's not it. It's truly caring about each other and trying to build a team around a family dynamic that, maybe you have lunches once in a while together. Maybe you do some of the social thing that builds the connection between people who are normally not, the same.
You are the epitome of a bucket filler. In Rath and Harder's book, How Full Is Your Bucket? They talk about the two kinds of people we find in our organizations, bucket fillers and bucket dippers. And you seem to me the perfect example of someone who goes around and fills other people's buckets. Who fills your bucket? Who inspires you, motivates you?
I got a great support system around me. God fills me each day. My wife, I've got a great group of men we have a men's group that, I go to. I think every leader has to have a support system.
Yes.
There's a Tuesday night group that I run from people across the country, and we're there for each other every step of the way. We've been going for years. It was only supposed to be a 6-week group, and now it's been like 300 weeks or something. We've been meeting. So,
Great.
but again, that group, we refer to each other as family, even though some of us have never even met each other in person. We consider each other family. So, I think that one perspective I got along the way was, as a litigation attorney, you spend a lot of time breaking people down, and that's part of the nature of the beast. Is in order for a client to win, I might have to destroy the client on the other side. And now I look at it as I could help people. I could serve. I could use my gifts and my talents to tell people they could be the best that they could be, rather than using my skills the other way. So
I'm so happy that you recognize the talent and the skill you have and how you pay it forward. I think that is so important as we move forward. We can't be all things to all people, but what can we be? And then let's be the best version of ourselves, where our talents and where our strengths lie. And then let's form complementary partnerships with those who may have talents and skills that we don't possess naturally, that takes a little more time and effort and investment to actually do what other people do so naturally. So as we wrap up here, I want to think about your continued development. And as I think about that, how would you respond to what's next for you in terms of your continued growth and development?
That's a good question. I wake up each morning and I ask God how He wants to use me today. And I don't know what tomorrow brings. I hope that throughout each day I could be the best version of myself and give as much as I can to the people around me. And that sounds kind of like, come on, this is all pie in the sky kind of stuff. But sure, I've got plans and things I'm working on, but a lot of those things are guided towards, how can I help coach more people? How can I help spread conflict resolution to more teams and develop that? But also within the place that I'm at, how can I bring that to the place that I am at? And what does that look like on a daily basis? So, I think that I don't know what next month will bring as far as where he wants me to go, but right now I'm enjoying the journey.
It's been such a pleasure to talk with you and to hear your perspectives and your real optimism and positivity for what's ahead of us, but also the realistic grounding that you have of what's so important right now. I, for one, appreciate that, and I think our listeners will too. I know there's so much they'll be able to resonate with and have a voice in the conversation around empathy, around productive, collaborative debate and conflict, around really having faith in our students and belief as we move forward. And I really have appreciated this conversation. As we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to share?
It was interesting. This morning I came across, it was on Facebook. It was a picture of an elephant, and it had 3 different people, and they were all blindfolded. Okay. And one was pulling on the trunk, one was touching the midsection of the elephant, and the other was pulling on the tail. And the question was, if you asked each of the 3 that were blindfolded what they were touching, one would say, the trunk would say a snake, the one with the tail would say a rope, and the one in the middle would say, I'm touching a wall. And I think that's, if you could understand that kind of picture, we could really kind of build a stronger team, even within the higher education space, where the prisms that we all look through, based on our life experience and the situation we are in, we're going to see different colors. We're going to be touching a different piece of the elephant. Yeah. And if we could stop, drop, and roll to understand that picture and that prism, boy, we could go a long way towards really, really doing great things together.
We absolutely could. Being present and being open to these new possibilities and looking to the future, thinking forward about how we can be as a higher education institution is really what's at stake here. And so where tradition meets transformation, it's really all about leadership. And I value the work that you're doing. I'm happy that you made the travels across country, and it sounds like the work you're doing at Alvin Community College is valuable, and I'm hoping appreciated. Thanks so much, John. And for those of you listening, leave us a review. Go to our Instagram, Think Forward with Rose, and comment, please. Follow us if you're not already following us. Go to my website, ourleadershipjourney.com. There's a blog and lots of wonderful tips and tools and resources for you there as you continue to grow in your leadership. And remember, in conflict, to stop, drop, and roll. And I'm going to put that into practice as well. Thanks again, John. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.